It's July 2nd, 1863. Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, a college professor of rhetoric and languages, is leading the 20th Maine right here. He is told to hold this position at all cost. At all cost. Alabamans from Confederacy have already attacked wave after wave after wave, and Chamberlain's men have already released 15,000 rounds, and now they're out of bullets. But they see another wave coming, and he's losing men left and right from these waves. He has no more ammunition, but he still has to hold this spot at all cost. A professor, a college professor with no military experience, looks at his men, knows what's coming, and gives the order to fix bayonets.
Charge. Charge!
I am here at Gettysburg National Military Park. This is where Robert E. Lee has invaded Pennsylvania and brought the war to the north once more. But before we get into this battle, this three-day battle, remember to subscribe and hit that notification button so that way you're familiar anytime I upload a video in regards to my Civil War stories or any of the other classes I have. Now Lee, he's come here into Pennsylvania with a grand force. He has some objectives and goals to do, and if they pay off, it could mean that the Confederacy will win this war. But before we get into this battle, let's rewind just a little bit. Although the Union Army has been making steady progress in the West under the command of General U.S. Grant, the Eastern Campaign is still a series of major disappointments for President Lincoln. Since the start of the war, Lincoln has seen report after report of major defeats in the East. McDowell at Bull Run, McClellan on the Peninsula, 7 Pines in 7 days, Pope at Second Bull Run, McClellan's failure to capture Lee at Antietam, Burnside at Fredericksburg, and most recently, Hooker at Chancellorsville. Now, in June of 1863, Lincoln has been given word that Lee has brought his army of Northern Virginia into Pennsylvania, threatening northern cities, railways, and farms. Lincoln has a crisis on his hand. Lee's troops entered Maryland and Pennsylvania at the beginning of June 1863. The Confederate general wanted to forage off the rich northern farms to feed his struggling army of Northern Virginia. Additionally, Bobby Lee believed that the Union sentiment for the war effort was waning. His dominant victories at Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville just months prior had emotional consequences. In the South, there was becoming a strong sense of being unstoppable, whereas in the North, there was this fear that the war was becoming unwinnable. Now Lee believes if he could just get one more win, and it being in Northern Territory, the Union, well, they would have to seek peace. The war could soon be over. By June 28th, Lee's 80,000 men are spread out, leaving him vulnerable though. His troops were in essence making a half circle in Pennsylvania with divisions near Wrightsville, Harrisburg, and Chambersburg. From end to end, his troops are nearly 80 miles apart from each other in hostile Northern Territory, and there is a Union army in pursuit. He needs a better understanding of his situation. Unfortunately, General Lee's military eyes and ears, the brilliant cavalry commander Jeb Stuart, is nowhere to be accounted for. Stuart has misunderstood orders and is riding off on his own. Instead of giving intelligence of Union position and size, the Team Ginger commander is within 20 miles of Washington, D.C., raising a ruckus and nowhere near supporting his commander. Therefore, without Stuart's cavalry, the Confederate army spread thin and a Union army in pursuit, Lee looked upon a map and noticed a saving grace. All of his major divisions had access to roads that led to a small, rural town, and no matter where they were within 30-ish miles of this town. A town with the name of Gettysburg. What Lee does not know is that on the morning of June 28th, President Lincoln has replaced the Union commander, Fighting Joe Hooker. Lincoln, frustrated with Hooker's defeat at Chancellorsville and slow pursuit of Lee in Northern Territory, sent a messenger in the early morning hours waking up George Gordon Meade that he was now in command. Meade's style of command is going to be radically different than Hooker's, and he starts marching the Army of the Potomac at the quick step. Some divisions will even move a record-blazing 40 miles a day, far different than what Hooker was doing. What neither general knew was that if Gettysburg was the hub of a bicycle wheel, and the roads coming into town were the spokes, two massive armies were on a rapid collision course with each other. It's July 1st, 8 a.m., 1863. Union Cavalry Commander John Buford knows that he must maintain the high ground because he's the first of the Union soldiers to make his way into Gettysburg, and as he's coming through Gettysburg, he sees a large force of Confederate infantry coming at him. Buford knows that if he does not claim this high ground, and he will first take Seminary Ridge, which is directly behind me, if he does not hold the high ground, the battle will be lost before it even is started. And here we launch the first day of the Battle of Gettysburg. Buford, born in Woodford County, Kentucky, knew how important it was to quickly establish the high ground, and with his 2,700 men, they dismounted their horses and prepared a defense. Although they were outnumbered by Confederates that were nearly 3 times their size, Buford's cavalry were able to hold their position along Seminary Ridge in a truly heroic effort. Now, a quick side note, I absolutely love the portrayal of Buford by Sam Elliott in the film Gettysburg, and since then, whenever I think of Buford, I can only hear Elliott's raspy, awesome voice for him. Keep a clear eye. As Buford is becoming a hero for the Union on July 1st, Union reinforcements begin to enter Gettysburg. The 1st Corps, led by General John Reynolds, will arrive in time to put the Confederates at check. Major General John Reynolds, a much beloved commander in the Union Army, is the 1st Corps commander to bring his division to the front here at Gettysburg. And as he's directing his troops to attack the Confederates through these woods, as the Confederates are coming this way, trying to overtake that high ground, Reynolds is directing when a Confederate sharpshooter manages to target Major General Reynolds and shoots him right in the back of the neck, having the general fall right here. The death of General John Reynolds will be a major setback to the Union Army, and they begin to fall back. By noon on July 1st, there are nearly 25,000 Confederates engaged to just under 19,000 Union forces. Lee's forces have pushed Union troops off Seminary Ridge and back through the town of Gettysburg. However, Union forces are now starting to rally as General Meade's divisions are starting to pour in and able to hold Culp's Hill, Cemetery Hill, and Cemetery Ridge, which actually turn out to be better as they will be even higher ground than Seminary Ridge. I can't stress to you enough the heroics of John Buford on this first day. The foresight he had to take this high ground here at Seminary Ridge. Now, they're not going to be able to hold it. The Confederates are going to overwhelm them, but they get the first ground of high ground, and then they will be able to defend it more with Cemetery Hill and Seminary Ridge further on into the town of Gettysburg. But Buford, a hero. Meade, seeing the position he is in, begins to set up a defense that will prove key in winning Gettysburg. From above, it will look like a fishhook. The barb, that's what the hook is, will be the high ground of Culp's Hill. Along the bend will be Cemetery Hill. the highest ground in the entire town of Gettysburg. The high ridge line of Cemetery Ridge will make the shank of the Fishhook, and at the eye of the hook will be Little Round Top. Meade had established a strong defense on the high ground. Due to the shape of the Fishhook, he will also have the ease to reinforce any area that will be attacked. This is not just a good defense. It's a frickin' brilliant defense, and he has only been in command for just 3 days. Now, as July 1st is coming to a close, we do need to take a look at Confederate General Richard Ewell, who will spend the 3-day conflict fighting at Culp's Hill. There are numerous historians who blame Ewell for the Confederate loss because of how he responds on the 1st of July. Now, Ewell is new to command as he's Lee's replacement of Stonewall Jackson. If you recall, Jackson died from his wounds at the prior Battle of Chancellorsville, and Jackson is a legend. Ewell is a brave fighter prior, but he is no Stonewall Jackson. On July 1st, Ewell had been ordered by Lee to take Culp's Hill and East Cemetery Hill if it was deemed practical. But what is practical? His men had already had a hard march and had been engaged in a battle all day. Now, at 5 p.m. in the evening of July 1st, and unsure that Lee would reinforce him, Ewell stops the assault on Culp's Hill, feeling that he could not hold the ground. Again, he's thinking of his orders, in which the key word was practical. So why is Ewell criticized then? Well, his own junior officers, who were the same guys that fought along with Stonewall Jackson, were used to attacking. Now their new commander, Richard Ewell, is ordering them to stop. The junior officers would have believed Jackson would have never ever stopped. That's not who they were. And when they press Ewell to continue the assault, Ewell responds with, "When I want advice from a junior officer, I will ask for it." Sandy Pendleton, who had loyally served with Stonewall's staff and even took Jackson's body for burial in Lexington, Virginia after the death of his beloved general, will famously blurt out, "Oh, for the presence and inspiration of old Jack for just 1 hour." Sandy is clearly missing Jackson at this point. After all, Jackson would never have sat around like this. Stonewall would have taken the initiative and seized the hill no matter what the practicality of it was. But Ewell's inactivity allows the Union forces to dig in on Culp's Hill, building a strong defense. And for the next 2 days, Ewell will try to dislodge the Union force, only to fail each day, and some that will serve under him post-war will be very critical on how they could have captured the hill on July 1st, but instead, they did nothing. Now, I would love to spend more time with General Richard Ewell. After all, he is a one-legged general that just before Gettysburg married his first cousin. Yeah, I said that. First cousin. But we have so many other stories to cover on so many other aspects of this battlefield. So I am going to invite you on your own to read more about General Ewell and see if he's truly to blame for day 1 of Gettysburg. At the end of July 1st, Lee believes that he's clearly winning the battle. He had pushed the Union Army back through Gettysburg while offering only 6,000 casualties, whereas the Union had over 9,000 casualties. He is confident in his chances, and he underestimates the leadership of Meade, believing that only being in command for just 3 days, the Union commander will be hesitant to make any brash moves. But Lee does not understand how strong George Meade's Fishhook defense really is. Lee's loyal lieutenant, though, James Pete Longstreet, nicknamed Lee's old warhorse, does realize the situation. Longstreet sees that the Union has built up a defense on high ground and pleads with Lee to leave the field since the Union has the high ground. Find another location. Lee may be a bit too confident, maybe a bit too cocky, will have none of it. Lee's response? The enemy is here. The fight is here. Here we will fight. On the morning of July 2nd, Longstreet will once more move for Lee to leave Gettysburg and find better ground. However, Lee still believes the battle can be won here and develops a plan of hitting the Union at 2 points. The first will be Ewell at Culp's Hill, which, as you already know, will not succeed. The second will send Longstreet through a peach orchard, then past rocky formation known as Devil's Den, and then finally a hard smack against the Union at Little Round Top. Although not confident in Lee's plan, Longstreet loyally moves his forces forward, only to be surprised to discover his troops are engaging Union forces at the peach orchard.
What?
The Union defense was set up along Cemetery Ridge. There's not supposed to be troops here. This would be a very poorly chosen defensive spot out in the open. Why is there Union corps out here by themselves, alone and way out in the open? I'm here in what is known as the peach orchard because, well, there's a big old peach orchard right over here. But why am I here? Well, that's a great question because no Union soldier was supposed to be here, but politician turned Corps commander Dan Sickles brought his entire 3rd Corps from way over there in the Union line where he was supposed to be along Cemetery Ridge, all right over through there. That's where he's supposed to be. He brought his entire 10,000 men of the 3rd Corps here to the peach orchard because he was like, this is higher ground. Nobody else is around us, but it might be better suited against the Confederates. Daniel, daggone Dan, you had one job. Defend Cemetery Ridge, and you decided to come here to the peach orchard all by yourself, creating that humongous hole in the Union line. Way to go, Daniel. On the morning of July 2nd, Dan Sickles was in the correct location with his corps along Cemetery Ridge. However, as the morning progressed, Sickles looked across the field. He noticed that the peach orchard, about a mile away, had higher ground, and Sickles felt that the peach orchard would make for a stronger point of defense, breaking away from Meade's Fishhook, exposing the entire Union army in the move. What Sickles did not understand is, with him being in the wide open, his corps would be exposed to Confederate guns on 3 of their sides. Additionally, his move created a gigantic hole in the Union center. Sickles has not only placed his corps in a very dangerous spot, but he has jeopardized the entire Union army. but let's talk about our good old boy Dan here, because he's an entertaining one. He sure is. Dan was a former politician from New York turned general when the war broke out. But we need to do a little more backstory on Dan because, oh my gosh, it is a unique one. Dan Sickles was 32 years old when he married his bride, Teresa, who was 15 at the time. Yep, 15. Eek. Different time frame. And maybe it was due to the age gap, but Dan did not remain faithful to his young bride. A year after their marriage, the politician was sent on government business to England, yet instead of taking his wife, he brought his favorite prostitute with him. That's right, you heard that correctly. His favorite prostitute went with him. Eventually, news of Dan's infidelity and absence at home led Teresa to having an affair of her own with Dan's friend, Philip Barton Key. Ow, his friend. Philip, the son of Francis Scott Key, and Teresa carried on the affair for nearly a year until February of 1859, when Dan Sickles discovered his wife's affair. She confessed to Dan, revealing how Philip had a love shack, as well as how they even had relation in Dan's very own home, on his very own couch, in his very own parlor. She gave Danny Boy graphic details of the affair. Dan believed not only was his marriage destroyed, but this would also end his political career as well, and he lost all control. The next morning, Philip, not knowing that the affair had been discovered, attempted to call on Teresa to Sickles' house, which, by the way, was directly across from the White House. The door was open to the Sickles home, and Dan's dog lovingly ran out to greet the all-familiar Philip. First his wife, and now his dog? Not the dog, too. Ah. With that, Dan met Philip outside the house, wrestled with him for a second, and then, armed with 3 different guns, Dan Sickles fired several shots into Philip Barton Key, killing him. Now, societies, you know what? They're totally interested in murder trials. Anytime there's a celebrity trial, we just get into it. And Dan Sickles' trial, for the readers of the time, you have a betrayal of friendship, the lust of an affair, and of course, the murder. Okay, that has everything one would want to read about. But what makes Dan Sickles' trial even more fascinating, more mesmerizing, is the innovative defensive technique that Dan Sickles is going to use. Clearly, the defense will work because Dan was commanding troops during the Civil War and not in jail for murder. There were numerous witnesses to the murder. Again, the Sickles house was directly across from the White House. So how is it that Sickles is not in jail? Well, this is because Dan will be the first defendant in the United States to use the defense of temporary insanity, which will result in his acquittal. Freaking genius.
He gets away with murder. Oh my gosh. First person ever to use that as a defense, and he gets away with it. But we're not done yet. Old Danny boy, besides screwing up badly here at Gettysburg, let's hear this story about him.
As Sickles was discovering himself in a real pickle in a peach orchard, a 12-pound Confederate cannonball struck him in the lower right leg, destroying it. Although having his leg completely mangled, Dan sat up, lit a cigar, and smiled. There is even a legend that he asked his aides to fetch the cannonball that struck him as a keepsake. As Sickles is having his leg amputated, instead of having it discarded, he had the foresight to have it sent to what will become known as the National Museum of Health and Medicine in Washington, D.C. And after the war, he would often visit his displayed leg at the museum on the anniversary of his amputation. Little side note, you can visit it yourself today if you want.
At this point, the dude is somewhat a badass. But there's still more. Still more.
Dan will return to duty and serve out the rest of the war, eventually earning the Medal of Honor. After the war, he will return to politics in several roles, one being the minister to Spain, in which he supposedly had an affair with Queen Isabella II. Good Lord, this guy is an OG. But once Sickles became a military man at the outset of the war, he remained a military man at heart. And that passion is the reason we have such a place of honor at Gettysburg. From the 1880s until the near end of his life, Dan Sickles raised funds to build monuments at Gettysburg. In the 1890s, he was re-elected to Congress and sponsored legislation to create Gettysburg National Military Park. Therefore, clearly, we owe him some thanks for this. However, Sickles being Sickles, it was discovered in his final years that he embezzled $27,000, which around today's money would have been $800,000. And he stole that from funds for monuments. With the embezzled funds, there will not be a bust of Dan Sickles like it was originally planned, and someone will eventually ask him how it felt losing the memorial to him. Dan Sickles' response? The entire battlefield is a memorial to Dan Sickles.
I'm sure meeting Dan Sickles in real life would have been a real hoot. So, thank you, Dan.
As Longstreet's troops moved through the peach orchard, and then on to the rocky terrain of Devil's Den, in which Confederate sharpshooters will take position to attack Union troops on Little Round Top, the final objective for Longstreet was in front of him. However, to take Little Round Top, his troops had to not only dislodge a group of Pennsylvania and New York boys, but also the end of the Union line, the 20th Maine, under the command of Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, who prior to the war was a professor of rhetoric.
And this brings us back to where we started today's story at. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, the college professor who had no military experience prior, is in this dire situation. He has already depleted all of his ammunition, and there is just simply two options left for him. Option one, the option that would not work, that is to retreat, to pull back. But if he does that, the Confederates then get the high ground here of Little Round Top, and it'd be a catastrophic failure for the Union Army. Lee wins, and Chamberlain's told he must hold this at all cost. So that means he has option two, and he can't defend anymore, so he has to go on the attack. And he orders his men to fix bayonets, and they charge down this hill. It's an amazing charge. It captures Confederates who are completely off guard. They're thrown off by it because they had been doing the attack, and all of a sudden here they have a whole Union regiment running down at them with their bayonets, and so they either surrender or retreat. Chamberlain is a hero, and he will receive the Medal of Honor 30 years later for his bravery and heroics and daring here at Little Round Top.
Longstreet sent Kentucky-born John Bell Hood to make the assault on Little Round Top. Hood, who commanded a group of 700-plus Texas and Alabama boys, will make the orders to charge up the hill. However, as soon as the Confederate attack started, Hood will be wounded in the left arm, forever losing the use of it. With Hood being removed from the field due to his wound, his troops will continue to make a series of charges up the hill against the 20th Maine, and each time being repulsed. Chamberlain and the 358 men with him of the 20th Maine, after they fired 15,000 rounds, were now out of ammo. This is when the colonel ordered the bayonet charge, which not only sent the Confederates in a full retreat, but captured 308 prisoners. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, a simple college professor with no military experience, but an amazing mustache, heroically forever impacted the Union Army. This is just another example for all of us in which heroic leaders can adapt by looking outside the box. With no ammunition left, Chamberlain took the initiative by being innovative. Gentlemen, you will face challenges that may be overwhelming, and the easy option is to fold, but that's the wrong option. And these are the times in which you will have to dig in and find a resolve to fix bayonet! At the end of a second day of fighting, Jeb Stuart and the Confederate cavalry finally arrive. Although Lee admonishes the Team Ginger commander for missing 2 days of combat, he is relieved to finally have him. Lee has lost an additional 6,500 men on July 2nd, but the Union Army has lost 8,700 more. In 2 days of fighting, the Confederate casualties are at 12,500, while Union casualties are over 17,000, approaching 18,000. Lee still believes he is winning, yet he has not even dislodged the Union Army from any of the high ground. That night, once more, Longstreet will ask Lee to leave the field for better terrain. And once more, Lee, still confident in the victory, shares, "The enemy is here. Our fight is here." And with that, he will begin to make plans for an attack on July 3rd, an attack of the Union Center, with a historic charge that would be led by George Pickett.
The 20th Maine's heroics is going to be somewhat how we're going to close today off with the end of July 2nd. So we've covered July 1st, we've covered July 2nd. There is one more day to go. That is July 3rd. And July 3rd is infamous for Pickett's charge. We've already seen a lot of carnage in these 2 days, but we've also seen bravery and resilience from the Union in these first 2 days. Saw a little bit of like, what you thinking about from some of the Union. And we've seen some actions by the Confederacy that are also inspiring, but at the same time, bringing up the question of why. If you have a question or a comment about these first 2 days of Gettysburg, leave it down below, and don't forget to hit that notification button and subscribe. Thank you. Guys, as always, remain awesome, be nice, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. There's all sorts of trees falling around here.